Mr. Joe Hamilton, and ministers and shadows will get 30 minutes and a 5 minutes extension. Honorable Minister,
thank you very much.
you may proceed.
Well, hear nonsense now.
Mr. Speaker.
Hear about the nonsense now.
Mr. Speaker, January 16, Minister Ashley Singh presented a budget to the people of Guyana. The theme is improving lives today and building prosperity for tomorrow. Our policies, our programs, our measures, they were articulated in the budget presented by Minister Ashley Singh. How we will execute these programs, how we will pay for the programs to be executed, the benefits it will bring to the Guyanese people, and who the beneficiaries would be.
Friends, family.
Mr. Speaker, the next 5 days, the citizens of this country and the nation at large will be treated to exposition like we just had not so long ago of profanities, banalities.
Better than you rambling. Better take this kind of seat.
Mr. Speaker, all kinds of vulgarities. But what I can assure this House and the people of this country, the permanent opposition will not bring to this Parliament any program, any plans, any policy that is comparable to that we have in the budget.
We spend 1 week prepping.
Mr. Speaker, nothing productive.
Like you.
Nothing constructive.
Like you.
Nothing developmental they would bring. Mr. Speaker, you know, the basic tenet of a debate is when you oppose, you propose.
You talking, Joe?
The basic tenet of a debate is when you oppose, you propose. But
talk about your program, your policy.
for the next 5 years, 5 days, all you would hear from that side of the House, the permanent opposition, and that's why they will be the permanent opposition. Because they are incapable. They are incapable of presenting any program and policies to the Guyanese people towards their development and well-being. We left programs for them to execute when they were in government, and they failed miserably, even though the money was available for them to do it.
Talk about it next year in front of us, the man, Joe.
Mr. Speaker,
talk about what's happening.
So what we will have the permanent opposition, Mr. Speaker.
Opposition.
They will denigrate, they will chastise, they will criticize, and even demonize the budget. But as I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, they will put nothing comparable before we have already put forward.
What is your ministry doing?
We have already put forward. Take your time, take your time. Nothing in any sector, in not one of the sectors, they will bring to the Guyanese people any plans and programs that is comparable.
What are you doing for your ministry?
Mr. Speaker,
talk about your ministry and your programs.
Because they are politically and intellectually incapable of doing that.
Oh, Father.
Politically and intellectually incapable. They have no capacity to think. They have no capacity to put a vision before the Guyanese people, and you will get for the next 5 years just what we had by the speaker before me.
That's last year's speech, Joe.
Mr. Speaker, ineptitude and incompetence reigned on the benches of the permanent opposition.
10 minutes later, nothing on the ministry.
I want to give you Mr. Speaker, some examples of how incompetent they are.
Of your policies?
Mr. Speaker, I want to start with the Lilliputian little party there, headed by one Comrade Ramjatan. They issued a press release January 14th for immediate release to all the press.
You can't.
And here what the proposal is.
That is your ministry.
A monthly electricity subsidy for all categories of consumers. 5,000 for domestic consumers, 10,000 for commercial and 15 for industry.
One guy needs to go to court.
You know, Mr. Speaker, what
You oppose it.
the Guyanese people must take note of, that this opposition, when they're in government,
Sit down, man.
they remove the subsidies
What are you?
from elderly, from the pensioners, and they added VAT to electricity and water charges. You think the Guyanese people can be fooled?
You're a fool.
And most importantly, another measure Mr. Ramjatan is proposing: provide duty-free concessions and VAT exemption on equipment and machinery for businesses involved in agriculture, private sector proposal. Mr. Speaker,
Joe,
Mr. Speaker,
Joe, you're a minister.
Mr. Speaker, the incompetence I am trying to point out.
Huh? And you can't even talk about your ministry.
The AFC is proposing
You can't.
a measure that was already executed since 2020.
Talk about your ministry.
Oh my God! All you have to do is go on the GRA webpage
Talk about
and check it out. Let me read for you.
read the empty cell.
Mr. Speaker, the 7th of September 2020,
This your budget presentation.
the People's Progressive Party civic government has made good on its promise on the removal of value-added tax in several sectors to ease the burden of Guyanese. This was disclosed by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, during a press conference today at Otochong Convention Center, 7th of September 2020.
Stunning budget presentation. Stunning. Stunning.
Mr. Speaker,
Good work with the
the
ministry.
President said that the measures will bring relief,
Ministry good.
stimulate economic activity, increase the country productive capacity, reduce the cost of doing business, and facilitate the growth and development of businesses. The measures, President Ali said, will have an immense impact on people's welfare and well-being and improve living standards.
Labor Joe.
Topping the list
Labor Joe.
is the removal of VAT immediately on water and electricity,
Everybody asked for 5 minutes.
which was introduced by the previous administration.
Everybody asked for 5 minutes.
The president said this will help every aspect of life and put money in the people's pocket. Further, removal of VAT and duties on machinery and equipment to allow for the recapitalization of key sectors, which includes mining, forestry, agriculture, and manufacturing.
What is your ministry?
This is coupled with the granting of tax concessions to making mining, forestry, and manufacturing, agriculture. Mr. Speaker,
Ministry doing, Joe?
you see the incompetence. That is why they could not have accomplished anything in government.
What is your ministry doing?
Mr. Ramjatan party is asking for something that was already effected
Tell us what you are.
2.5 years ago.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, stop this madness.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, stop this madness.
then we come to the opposition leader.
Will you come to your ministry yet? When we come into your ministry? When we come to your
Mr.
ministry?
Speaker, we come to the opposition leader.
When we come into your ministry?
He reasoned that while it is good to put resources towards agriculture, the issue is that there is little or no emphasis
No increase mention.
on manufacturing and therefore resources should have been put to the sector as well as each of the non-oil sectors in a profound manner. Mr. Speaker,
So when we come to
you know the thing is,
you know,
the opposition leader is talking about manufacturing and its expansion,
your ministry.
and they killed the Amila Falls project. The opposition leader now in 2023 speaks about expansion of manufacturing, yet they had the Red Plus money for 5 years
It's your forte, of course.
to improve and to invest in alternate energy, and they failed miserably. And this gentleman comes and he now talks about what you will do in manufacture. Mr. Speaker, he too said that the excess focus on infrastructure, this according to him, is because this is where corruption occurs. The leader of the opposition said the government seems to like calling big figures, how much money in this and that. What is missing is what impact it will have on the lives of the people. And when it comes to the impact on the lives of the people, this budget is dead meat. Mr. Speaker,
Anand, if you write this speech for me,
if you're incapable of understanding
I wrote a defense
what the impact,
suspension case.
the positive impact will be on citizens by building a bridge across the Demerara River, then you're lost. If you are incapable of understanding what the positive impact will be of allowing tens of thousands of Guyanese to own their own homes, then you're lost. If you are incapable of understanding what the impact is of making available thousands of scholarships to young people so that they can elevate themselves, then you are lost. And that is the reason why I started out by saying you are the permanent opposition.
talk to the ministry now.
Permanency.
All right, Joe, all right. The ministry,
Mr. Speaker,
labor now, Joe.
again, labor, you're in labor. Mr. Speaker, again, oh, I'm arrogant?
Yes, you
Oh, all right. All right, you were talking about arrogance.
an old fool.
Mr. Speaker, further the opposition leader went on to say, he said poverty reduction and poverty alleviation are absent from the 2023 budget. This seems to be a budget for the rich.
Labor, Joe, labor.
Mr. Speaker, building tens of thousands of houses and giving out house lots for ordinary people. That's a policy for the rich. Making available scholarship for the young man that live in Shelton. Making available
Joe, labor.
scholarship for the young teacher that live at Paramakatay
Minister,
or in Maracabay. That's for the rich.
Minister,
Mr. Speaker,
Joe, like you got a point.
Mr. Speaker, then we come to the honorable gentleman. I'll get to you in a moment. You don't dictate. You don't dictate.
Labor.
You don't dictate how I present.
Minister,
Mr. Speaker, you will have your opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, you're asking relevant saying that.
Mr. Speaker,
25 minutes in.
then we come to
Citation and that kind of stuff. Mr.
Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford. Honorable member,
Mr. Rum Rappin.
there is every reason, he says, he's the wannabe opposition leader. He says there is every reason for Guyanese to feel this budget, the largest ever in the country's history, could create possibilities for increasing corruption if President Ali does not return to the anti-corruption policies of the coalition government. My God, you can't make this up.
Your presentation, Joe.
You cannot make this up.
Point of labor.
Imagine this honorable gentleman,
Minister of Labor with no labor presentation.
this honorable gentleman who brought in a fuel boat and was hustling to have the fuel boat pass the Demerara Harbor Bridge, failing to pay $36 million to the Guyana Revenue Authority. This honorable gentleman, who whilst being chairman of the Gaming Authority, established a scheme to have a businessman who was qualified to get a casino license, that he paid to a third party $2 million US. And we're returning to the Granger anti-corruption policies. I mean, imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine that, Mr. Speaker. And now we come to what you all want me to speak about. You want me to speak about labor? I will speak about labor. Oh, you're in a hurry? Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. I have enough time. First, I have to deal with incompetence and ineptitude. Secondly, I have to deal with, Mr. Speaker, secondly, I have to deal with Little League Norton. And thirdly, I have to deal with the fuel smuggler who's telling us about corruption. Mr. Speaker, what you want to do? You want to fight now? Oh my God. Oh boy. You hear what happening there? Oh Lord. Ramjatan, Mr. Speaker, I seek your protection here. Mr. Ramjatan want to fight. He wants to fight now. He wants to go outside. He wants to put on the boxing gloves.
But honorable member, going outside maybe is for something else. Doesn't necessarily mean to fight.
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Labor, re-established by the People's Progressive Party civic government, when we came into office, a promise and a commitment we made to the Guyanese people. I will speak to some of the programs. Mr. Speaker, the APNU AFC, Mr. Speaker, in 5 years,
That's the program?
dealing with the Board of Industrial Training. They care so much for young people and their development. Mr. Speaker, in 2019 we started oil production. It was indicated to this nation in 2015 that we found oil offshore. But Mr. Speaker, the government of the time, they did nothing as regards the development of the necessary skill sets that were needed for Guyana development. Mr. Speaker, average, and you're acquainted with it, average amount of persons under APNU they train via the Board of Industrial Training is between 1,300 to 1,500 persons.
I thought we do nothing.
Mr. Speaker,
I thought we do nothing.
nowhere outside of the coast they made any attempt to include riverine and interland communities within their training program. Mr. Speaker, to report, we came into office August 2020. And by the end of the year, we would have already trained 2,000 persons. 2021, we trained 3,086 persons. And in 2022, Mr. Speaker, we would have trained 4,500 persons. The fact is, the numbers can be validated. You can go and check it. Mr. Speaker, between the period 2020 to now,
You like this budget?
under our government, Mr. Speaker, we trained 7,500 persons under the hand of the Board of Industrial Training. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023 provides for us to train about 7,000 persons. So, Mr. Speaker, we are moving from a place where first you had no labor ministry, so they could not even talk about anything as regards labor. They come here, they talk about labor, talk about labor. Why you didn't talk about labor when you're in government? You had no labor ministry. Mr. Speaker, what is important to note also, apprenticeship program that was dead under APNU. We were able to place 173 apprentices in 2022. 144 at the Gaisuko Training Center, males, 7 females, 151 persons were trained as apprentices at Gaisuko Training Center under the auspices of the Board of Industrial Training. Both sides, 17 persons were trained as apprentices. So we're moving from zero. We're moving from zeros to 173 persons trained as apprentices in technical areas. Mr. Speaker, you have no understanding. Apprentices and training programs are 2 different things. Oh my God.
3 years.
Mr. Speaker, again I repeat, in 2.5 years, the Board of Industrial Training trained 7,500 persons via the programs that we executed. And secondly, we made available 173 persons to be trained as apprentices in 3 different companies, so that the people over there understand.
What about the stipend, Joe?
Mr. Speaker,
Stipends raised?
Mr. Speaker,
What about the stipend, Joe?
Mr. Speaker,
The stipend, Joe.
coming out of training, what we do is tracking. Mr. Speaker, thus far, we have been able to successfully track from the 2021 trainees, 715 beneficiaries, and that program continues. I can report, Mr. Speaker, that 75.1% of those persons trained are gainfully employed.
Where? Part-time jobs.
Mr. Speaker,
Part-time jobs. 10 days a week.
and 4% of those persons, they continue to study. Mr. Speaker, the program will continue. We have expanded this program, Mr. Speaker, and we have already started collaboration with companies that are in oil and gas. We have signed several memorandum of understanding with companies. We are about to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Aeronautics School in Ogle. We have just signed an MOU with the Electrical Inspectorate of the Ministry of Public Works to ensure all people that we train as electrical installation personnel, they can be certified. Mr. Speaker, we come now to Labor Department. Mr. Speaker, the work of the Labor Department, we were able in 2022, via 913 complaints from walking employees. The ministry resolved 85% of those complaints, and we recovered on behalf of employees $40 million from employers. $40 million on behalf of ordinary men and women. Mr. Speaker, collective labor agreements. In 2022, the ministry countersigned 23 collective labor agreements between labor unions and employers. Some employers and labor unions They refused in 5 years under Abdul stewardship to even sit at the same table to have a conversation. We were able to bring them together via mediation, and we were able to countersign 23 collective labor agreements. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, we conducted 13 conciliations. Mr. Speaker, the ministry also provided advisory services for foreign companies such as SBM Guyana, Guyana Shorebase, ExxonMobil, Schlumberger, and Newcrest Guyana. Mr. Speaker, this engagement continues. The labor landscape is changing. We have just made available for the public 2 studies that were done by consultants. One by the ILO that speaks to the deficit of technical capacity to service the oil and gas industry, and one done by Dr. Vishnu Durga, action coach, in the construction sector, that has indicated what is the present state regarding the deficit in skill sets. Perhaps we would not have been at this dismal place in Guyana if APNU AFC did some work in this regard. So we have to play catch up now because they did nothing to deal with the matter. Mr. Speaker, we have been doing awareness and sensitization programs around the country. I have said last year that we have moved from no labor ministry to establishing labor ministries in all regions across the length and breadth of Ghana. In some instances, we have labor ministry established. That is, you have no understanding of anything. That is region 6, we have 2 offices.
That's different from a labor ministry.
Offices of the labor ministry we have established in the last period across the length and breadth of the country. Mr. Speaker, the fact is, he said the labor ministry was always there. I have just said, Mr. Speaker, the evidence is, in 5 years under the APNU AFC, there existed no labor ministry. You had a labor department in the Ministry of Human Services. That is clarity. Oh my God. Oh my God, I wouldn't even respond to that. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the Central Recruitment and Manpower Agency. Mr. Speaker, the Central Recruitment and Manpower Agency, we have moved it from a place where only walk-ins for people who have interest in seeking employment. We have established in March of 2022 a job bank to make it easy for people. Somebody says an old-time thing. Valda Lawrence, you were the ministry, you had a job bank. Mr. Speaker, we established in March 2022 a job bank where a total of 3,300 job seekers sought employment and 239 employers were registered. Mr. Speaker, the job bank continued to expand to reach Guyanese across the country. Mr. Speaker, we continue also the walk-in, and 837 persons came to CRMA as walk-ins, as job seekers. So even though we established a job bank, we still continue to utilize the premises at 82 Brick Dam. Of the persons who sought our help, 146 of those persons were placed. Mr. Speaker,
You gotta put back man seriously, Labor Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Occupation Safety and Health, Occupation Safety and Health Department.
Back this office to
Mr. Speaker, when we took government
elevate back this office.
in 2020, workplace deaths
Can't put your man through shoes.
in 2020 was 32 persons.
You bring down the office.
Mr. Speaker, in 2022, based on the programs and our policies, that was decreased by 16%.
Honorable member, for me to bring you back to conclude, I will have to get an extension for you of 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, may I ask that the honourable member be given an extra 10 minutes to conclude?
Yes, honorable member. Honorable member, honorable Labour Minister, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, the amount of workplace deaths, it was decreased again by 20%. So, Mr. Speaker, in 2 years, we are moving from a place where in 2020, 32 persons lost their lives in workplaces. And yes, we have moved, Mr. Speaker, 2022, that has decreased to 21, and the work continues, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the specific matter of workplace death, for me, it is not statistics, because every time someone is killed at their workplace, that is a family of some person. The husband, the child, the friend of some person. Mr. Speaker, so we continue to engage both public sector and private sector. We continue to establish workplace health and safety committees. We continue to help resuscitate those in private sector and public sector. Mr. Speaker, the Co-op department, Mr. Speaker, this year, Mr. Speaker, regarding cooperative societies in this country, we will have to resolve or dissolve, because the nation must be told and informed that cooperative societies in this land of ours, they have in their possession tens of thousands of acres of land, most of it non-productive. Let me repeat. Mr. Speaker, cooperative societies, they have in their hands lands that belongs to the state, tens of thousands of acres that are unproductive. Most of it, in many instances, are run by some family or some one man who took it over. Took it over and it's unproductive. Let me clarify. Mr. Speaker, whether the Lands and Surveys, whether the Forestry Commission, whether MMA, we will have to make those lands productive, because as we continue to speak about food security and agricultural expansion, we cannot afford, the nation cannot afford, that tens of thousands of acres that are in the hands of co-op societies, they continue to be unproductive. I have tasked the co-op department, and we have just concluded an integrity audit of co-op societies so that we could understand the state of play. And Mr. Speaker, as we go forward, and I make no apologies for this,
Nobody's asking for it.
I have asked Lands and Surveys, I have asked the Forestry Commission, I have asked the MMA to make available the information to us as to the amount of lands that co-op societies they have in their possession.
Just 90%.
Those that want to work for development, we will work with them.
That's the answer they are.
But what we will not continue to have happen, people utilizing the farcical umbrella of co-op societies when they have government land in their possession. And I have no apologies to make.
Nobody's asking for
The
it.
action, as I said, is either they resolve these matters or they will be dissolved. Mr. Speaker, let me
We need trade unions, we need co-op. I know.
let me say, Mr. Speaker,
That's why you got to block everything.
that,
Block
as I said, when I started, I will end. The permanent opposition over there,
permanent nonsense.
I contend that in 5 days, they will chastise and criticize our budget.
As opposition.
But I am confident
As opposition.
that they will not be capable to bring any comparable program to put before the Guyanese people challenging what is in this document.
You beg by ideas.
They will not be
You got
able to do
support
that.
the budgetary
And the nation will be the witnesses in the next 5 days.
Just with this you madness.
You'll see the display.
Coherent presence.
The display
Rambling.
with the first speaker, that is the same display you will have with all the other speakers on that side of the house. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.